Okay, so welcome to the Emunah Faith in Action weekly chabura. And as I was saying before, I wanted to continue this even our bar mitzvah this evening, but I just think it's so important that we keep this flow, flow going. And so what I wanted to talk about today, and we'll open the floor for discussion, is that we had discussed definitions of the terms Emunah and B'tochen. And I'm going to put them up on this whiteboard here, and just so we can review them. And here we go. So I'd like to suggest that the better way to define these terms than is standardly translated, rather than faith and trust, is Emunah is the training to maintain our seeing the world the way it really is. Protected sacred space from outside invasion and tainting. That's what we would say, okay, I have faith. What does it mean I have faith? So first of all, we see that the word in Hebrew for what we're calling Emunah here, what we're calling, people loosely translate as faith, is spelt like this. And Emunah is actually from the same letters here. Aleph, the Aleph, Mem, and the Nun is actually the same words, same letters as Amen. So Aleph, Mem, and the Nun is Amen, and Amen is we say stands for three letters: Kael, meaning God; Melech, king; Ne'eman is faithful. But Emunah is also the root here. The Aleph Mem and Nun is also from the same root as to train, to like a craftsman, a worksman, a person who's trained in a field, is from that same word. So it's really about training. So what are we training ourselves to do? Well, on one hand, the faith, the belief is already built into us, because that's who we are. We have a divine spark in us. So our training now is to maintain our seeing the world the way it really is. In fact, as a little child, when you're born, you just see the world with this tremendous simplicity and this tremendous ease. And nothing really bothers a little child. If it is, only momentarily. But then as we get older, we start to allow things. This guy has this thought, that guy has that thought. People are writing books, teachers are talking to us in class, and that's either helping train us to keep the sacred space, or it's actually part of the invasion of the sacred space. So that is the concept of Emunah. Now, B'tochen, we translate it as, instead of translating it as trust, I suggested in the first class that we translate that as certainty that there is a personal relationship. And what that looks like is something we're going to explore today. So let me take this over here and see if I can move this up to here. And let's start another text box. And what I wanted to open the discussion with today was to think about, if we were going to have certainty that there's a personal relationship with anybody, what would that look like? What would be the elements that we have to have in order to have that certainty that there is a personal relationship? Okay, so the certainty that there's a personal relationship would mean to me that this is a relationship that is individual for me, and it's there all the time. Meaning, I'm saying certainty is a personal relationship. Why is that such an important distinction? Because it's not just that God is some sort of far away experience. People get very much wrapped up in particularly in politics. Oh, this guy's going to save the country. That guy's going to save the country. Or this player is going to come on the team and save the team. This guy's going to save the company. Whatever it is. That has nothing to do with a personal relationship. That's like a fantasy, a hope, and a superhero. But can you really trust a superhero? Let's ask that. We can ask that question. So we're going to see that I'd like to suggest, based on the works of the duties of the heart in the gate of faith, that we'll call it the gate of certainty, He suggested there's 7 things. So I want to open up everyone to see what people want to suggest. What would be, you knew that you could really rely on somebody, that there's a personal relationship. What are some things that you would think of that would be necessary for you to verify first before you would decide to put your certainty in this person? So everyone can raise their hand, speak up.
That would be very difficult for me to answer because, in all honesty, I don't trust anybody. I don't have any friends, and my husband of 28, well, I mean, we were together for 28 years, married for 26 of them, and he dropped me like a lead balloon out of the blue for no one. I have no idea why. I was not raised to trust, and I don't have friends. I obviously don't have a husband anymore, and I literally don't trust anyone right now.
Okay.
So that would be a very difficult thing for me to answer.
So if you don't trust anybody, there must be some standard that you're using to determine that they're not trustworthy. The same standard you would use to say this person is trustworthy, you're using that standard to evaluate that the people that you are coming in contact with are not trustworthy. So you're using the same standard. The question is, what is the standard? So what would be something that you would be looking for? The absence of it, you would say the person's not trustworthy. The presence of it, you would say, hey, I could trust that person.
That when if I put a lot of effort into a relationship, that they're going to give the same effort if the relationship. I mean.
Okay, so what would let's call it reciprocity, maybe? I don't know why. Oh, I'm just typing in Hebrew. That's why.
Oh, look, Hebrew.
So no wonder the. No, I'll keep switching to Hebrew. Sorry. Okay, reciprocity. Okay. What would be another thing? So I'll suggest some things here based on.
They actually, I guess it's, they would actually meet my needs rather than saying, "Well, go meet your own."
Okay, meet needs. How would they know? What elements would be required in order to meet your needs?
I need help with a project. Okay, not my problem.
But that's about you. You need help with a project, but for them to be able to come through to meet your need, what would be the elements that would be needed for them to have to be able to meet your needs?
The knowledge that I need in order to complete the project, using the project as an example.
So they have to know. They would have to know how to help you.
Sure.
Right? That would be something that would be required. Okay. What else would they need in order to be able to meet your needs? There's something else they would need also.
A willingness to do so.
Okay, a willingness. What else?
The ability to.
The ability. Right, the ability. That could also be the strength to do it, right? Like if you need help moving your car, they'd have to know how to car or build a house for you or whatever it is. So ability, strength.
Right.
Okay, good. What else?
This is a little hard because I protect myself. I take care of myself. I don't, this is weird.
Right, because
especially after a 26-year relationship or 28-year relationship where, I honestly thought that, if I said, hey, I'm scared, please come hold me, he would, instead of going, yeah, you know what, your old used furniture, go away. So,
So then you
It's a little tough right now. It's like you want me to actually think about what it would be to trust someone when all I want to do is make sure that I never trust anyone again.
okay, so there has to be love. There has to be love there. So that's a element there. We got another one. What else?
If hopefully somebody else on this call has some because I'm out.
Okay. So what about some sort of evidence? Like if someone came along and said, okay, from now on they could do all these things for you, it would be a little bit difficult to believe it unless there was some evidence that they have been doing that, right? So there has to be a track record in order to really be able to have certainty that we're defining over here, that the certainty that there's a personal relationship. In order to be able to have that certainty, that requires a track record. Okay, what else?
Okay.
How do I get back in here? I left this thing over here, select. Okay, track record. What else? Let's think creatively here. What else do we need? Okay, so let's say this person can meet your needs. In order for that to be relevant, that if there's someone else that could countermand or could undermine or defeat what that person is trying to do, that would mean that it would be difficult to really have certainty in that person, right? So let's say someone is going to get you a certain result. This person can get you the job, but then there's someone else who could, fire you. That person, so it has to be that this person is the only one that can help or hurt. Right? If there's anyone else who has that power, then the limit's limited. The person could be very loving, could be wanting to follow through, can have the strength, can have the track record. But then if the person if there's someone else out there that's a free agent, so to speak, doing whatever they want, it could just ruin the whole thing. So that would be another thing that we need to see. And then the last one I'd like to suggest over here is that in order for a person to be certain that the person is going to come through for them and is taking care of them now, they have to know that they would do that whether I as a recipient is deserving or not. So if we start, we got 9 things written here. And what I would suggest if we I'm going to delete the word meet the needs, because meeting the needs we see now is really broken up of a bunch of different things. So I'm going to put love over here as number 2, okay? And then he knows how to help. Knows how to help. Has the willingness to do so. Has an ability and strength, right? So it's not, a person could, I'm sorry, I'm going to actually reverse these for a reason. How about this still the same? 1 second here. So you could have a person that loves, but hey, full of love, but doesn't actually want to do anything. Okay, so that's why you need number 2, willingness to do something, to fall. Okay, and willingness to do and follow through on that love. Number 3, number 4 is also here, knows how to help you, right? Has to have the knowledge, then has to have the ability and the strength. So there's 4 levels already. One has love, has the willingness to do something about it, knows the right way to help. Maybe it is to give you the job, maybe it's not to give you the job. It's not always the best thing to get a particular job. Sometimes that can be the worst nightmare. Has to know how to help you, has to have the ability and the strength to help you, has to be able to get that job. Has to have had a track record of helping you, and has to be the only one that can help or hurt you, and is going to help you whether you're deserving or not. So what we see over here, if we're really honest, is that it's not really possible reciprocity, because this ability of love, the willingness to do and follow through on the love, the knowing how to help the person in every circumstance, the ability and the strength to follow through in every circumstance, the track record of always having helped, being the only one that can help or hurt a person, and helping them whether they're deserving or not, is not something that we find in human beings. For me to say I'm looking for someone who, like you started, we want reciprocity. You're gonna do something, they're gonna do something for you, you're gonna do for them. If you do for them, they're gonna be reciprocal. It's not really possible, because in the first place, it's an unreasonable request for reciprocity, because I can't even offer these things. I cannot offer, and I'm going to suggest that no human being can. I cannot offer love, the willingness to do and follow through on the love all the time, every time. Knowing how to help a person. I can see a person I love very much. I want to help them, and I don't know how to help them. I see that. I see people, whether it's a family or outside family, people come to me, they come for advice. I see that no matter what I suggest, now I might have, maybe my advice is not, who knows if I even know how to help them, but I see that they are incapable of following through on doing something. So I don't even know how to help them. Meaning to say, I say, go call Mr. A. And they don't call him. Week goes by, 2 weeks go by. So what can I do to help them? Okay, I can call the person for them, maybe. But I don't know how to help them want to be able to help themselves. Okay, so I don't know. I don't have the ability and strength. That I see people suffering from a lot of things. The guy's getting fired from his job because of this or that. I don't have the ability or the strength to get him his job back. I could lobby, I could make phone calls. Sometimes I'm successful, but I don't have sort of a guaranteed ability and strength. I don't have a track record because I just met the person. I have no track record of helping them or taking care of them. I'm definitely not the only one that can help or hurt them, because I'm sitting right here. I'm a limited human being. I could have the love, the willingness. I know. I'm so smart. I know how to help them, and I'm very, very powerful. And I've been helping them, but that I'm the only one that can help or hurt them. I could be like, getting them set up in a certain direction, giving them great advice, follow through, and then boom, something comes out from left field. Someone else does something, either that helps them or hurts them. I could be saying, I'm going to get this guy this job. I got all the ins. And then all of a sudden he gets a phone call from someone else giving him a better job, right? So, and then whether deserving or not, I'm not on a level that I feel a constant sense of wanting to help people that for whatever reason, I don't think they're deserving, right? That I'm a human being. I am limited. I see someone that's, I know for whatever reason, I don't think they're great. I don't think they're deserving. So if we are really honest with ourselves, I cannot offer reciprocity. If I'm looking for someone to be certain there's a personal relationship with a power greater than myself, with the certainty that there's this love, that the certainty is this willingness, the certainty of following through, the strength, track record, I don't have any hope of offering any reciprocity, even in one tiny amount. Because let's say prayer, okay, I'm going to pray. Thank you. I mean, sometimes my thank yous are off the mark. I forget to say thank you. I forget to, right? So I'm not even in the same ballpark as being able to be consistently able to offer this. But what the Chavis, the duties of the heart says, the author duties of the heart says, there's only when you identify these 7, which is really 7, if we take off here reciprocity, now that we understand that we can't really reciprocate. And we renumber these. And 7. When we say, okay, if we're agreed that these are the 7 things I need to look for to be able to say, I can be certain in this other person. I can have certainty there's a personal relationship, the other person is going to follow through. They have to meet all 7 of these categories, 7 of these aspects. So the reality is there's no human being that meets these. I can't say a thing, but the only place or the only way in which these 7 aspects are met isn't God Almighty. He is the only one that
I so want to agree with you on that, but I don't. I haven't found a willingness for him to help. I prayed for this. I mean, I'm just using my marriage because it's just so right there and tangible, and everybody else is talking about COVID and politics. And for me, I mean, yeah, that's all. I'm not afraid of COVID, and you know, politics are going to do what politics are going to do. I have a very real, pressing issue right now that is affecting my life far more than the politics and COVID. And and so this willingness to do and follow through. I prayed and prayed and prayed for over 20 years, and my husband still kicked me to the curb, literally calling me used furniture. Okay, so if I pray and I pray and I pray and I pray and I pray, and I know that God has the power to do this, where's the willingness to do and follow through on the love? Does he even love me? I don't even know if he does.
Well, that's a good question. So the question, how would you know if he loves you? You're already asking for a very particular advanced request that's not meeting your request. Your request is not coming through in the way that you want it right at this point in time. But what about all the other things that he's giving you? He's giving you existence. He's giving you life. He's giving you a breath every moment. He's giving
but
you.
Why is that a good thing when my heart is so broken that I can't even begin to imagine a life that I can give? I don't have energy. I literally have nothing to give him or anybody else. So how is it that I'm supposed to be thankful for the breath that he gives me every moment of every day when I don't want it?
So when we reach a state of thinking that we don't want the breath, then we have to ask ourselves, well, what exactly are we measuring up what we're receiving against? Meaning to say, the disappointments in the things outside of us, the disappointments in the things inside of us, the disappointments are because we're calculating that it should be different than it is.
Should a husband kick his wife of 20 some odd years to the curb because he would rather be with somebody else?
Well, but that's a judgment and a question about his behavior. But
it's also a question about whether or not I should feel that things should be different. Yeah, I do feel that things should be different.
Right. And that's why we have grief. But even in the deepest and darkest grief, we don't lose sight of the fact that we're grateful for the life that we do have.
I don't understand that at all. If the only thing you have in life is breath, what is there to be thankful for?
Well,
I have nothing to offer God. I have nothing to offer anybody else.
God, there's nothing you can offer God. In the same book, The Duties of the Heart, he writes that even if you were to do every single right deed, right thought, right speech, right action for your entire life, you couldn't possibly repay God Almighty for even one breath.
Then what's the point?
The point is that God is giving you breath. He's giving you life. He's giving you consciousness. He's giving you awareness.
But why?
Well, now you're asking a question as to why, but one second, before we get to the question of why, is what about, yes, I am experiencing being alive.
But I can't be thankful for being alive unless I know why I'm alive.
Well, other than that he created you and willed you into existence, what you also want him to provide a statement, like a bill of lading. I've created you because of some reason other than the fact that he created you. One second here.
Yes.
He created
yes.
you. But one second.
That's exactly what I want.
Who are you? Who are you? Who am I to ask for that? Since when do I have to have an explanation as to why I'm alive? I'm alive. That is an essentially living, joyous experience of being alive. Except now, why I'm not happy. I'm not happy because I have all kinds of questions. Why I'm alive. But in being alive itself is an extremely joyous experience. The chickadee in the morning gets up and sings, and the robin sings. He's not asking himself a question, why am I alive? Oh, I'm not singing until I get proof of why, and it has to be a reasonable proof that I understand as to why I was created to go chase this worm. Hello? Where does that written down as a prerequisite for the robin to sing? It's not. So the trap that we fall into as human beings is because God gave us the gift of thought.
Thank you.
God gave us the gift of thought. The gift of thought we could either use we could use it to navigate our rudder. It's a rudder that we could use to navigate our ship through life. We can either use it to crash ourselves into the shoals and say, I don't like the way this is going. I don't like the stormy waters. I don't like this. Where's the explanation for me? Or a person could use his power of thought, which is a divine gift, to be able to think and choose to think and focus on the thoughts that are going to bring him to sunny shores. That's something that we have the choice in every moment. And it's irrelevant what people are doing around us. It's absolutely irrelevant because, and Viktor Frankl, for example, in his book, The Man's Search for Meaning, he writes that he realized in a concentration camp, and he was in 3 concentration camps, that he always had the choice to make an honorable choice. He was not, the Nazi guards could not take away from him his essential divine spark, his essential honorable nature. They could not. They could kill him, but that does not take away his divine spark. It does not take away his honorable choices. So we see that there's people who come through very, very difficult situations, inspired, rejuvenated, and other people that are not able to let go of the fact that it didn't go the way they wanted.
And I have never been able to understand the people who came out of those concentration camps without, I can't imagine that with my personality and my temperament that I would have come out the way they did. I mean, not everybody, obviously there was hatred and stuff, but the ones who came out without their souls completely devastated and destroyed have fascinated me since I was a little girl. I don't understand this. I don't understand it at all. And that's why I'm taking this class.
No one could destroy their souls. A soul is indestructible. That's
well,
insight that each one of us comes to at a certain point in time. That there's no husband, there's no spouse, there's no Nazi guard, there's nobody that can tamper with our soul, because that always remains in God's domain, and that remains our God divine gift. And no one
can make life a living hell, not just for me, but for little children and for old people. I mean, there is a man in Denver right now who is trapped in a hospital because the doctors won't let him out because he tested positive for COVID and they won't let him go home.
Sure.
What kind of world is this that we live in? How do I look at all of the suffering and go, yeah, God is love?
Well, 1 second here. You're listing all the suffering right now. You didn't tell me about the woman in the hospital in Denver who just gave birth to a healthy baby. It was very, very joyous, and she was very happy, and the grandparents are very happy, and the siblings at home are very happy. And you're only picking on one experience. There's a lot of positive experiences. There's negative experiences out there. And by the way, the guy who's trapped in the hospital also has a choice as to how he experiences it. It's from a liberty perspective, it's not right that he's trapped in the hospital. It's objectively wrong. But I could point to the teachings of the previous Lubavitch Rebbe, who was tortured in prison, and writes how, decades later, he writes how he often sits and fondly reflects on his experiences in the Soviet interrogation prison. So we definitely...
Oh, that's the first time I've ever heard of something like that. That's amazing.
Right. So ask yourself the question, where did this person have that experience? Or why would he be able to reflect on it? Because when he was having the experience, he was experiencing God in the experience. He was not experiencing a bunch of random evil people who were depriving him of his liberty and stuck him in a prison and then tortured him and threatened to kill him. If you see...
But somehow he was experiencing God in that.
Right. So it's all, what's the difference between him and the guy next cell over who wasn't experiencing God? Same God was there. It wasn't a figment of his imagination. the same God that created the cell for him and created the air and the prison guard and created every detail of it and the rats and all these things was creating it for the next guy also. But one of them is taking as this is an experience of God and experience God's closeness and experience his own existence and his own consciousness, his awareness of his existence, and knew that he could choose what he wanted to think about in that experience. And then you have another guy who chose the exact opposite.
Chose what he thought about.
Correct. We all have choice. This is the only place we have free choice, is in our thought. I don't have any free choice as to whether or not you're on this call or not. I don't have a free choice whether or not the ceiling stands up, whether it's going to snow now, whether electricity works. I have no choice in that whatsoever. And we can see that in regular life. There's all kinds of things happening. Power could go in a second and that's it. Goodbye call. But I can always be thinking about what I'm thinking about. Let's say right now, I could be thinking about, power goes out. I can think this is fantastic. I am so happy. I have no more time to get ready for the bar mitzvah now. I could be saying this is the worst thing ever happened. We're in the middle of a class. What are people going to say? The power went out. I could be all wrapped up in all kinds of negative thinking. And let's say tomorrow, I have more time to sit and reflect. Some of the best times we've ever had. We were without power here. 2 hurricanes, Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Irene, I think it was called. We were out with no power in our house for a week. It was the most beautiful experience. It was freezing out. We had to light the fire in the fireplace. We got the house, I think, up to 67, just with the fire in the fireplace. We had a beautiful experience. By the time the power came on, we're like, what do we need this for? Because we were having such a beautiful time as a family together. We were enjoying each other's company. And we had a beautiful experience. Now, other people, I go out in the morning, I say, wow, this is such beautiful weather. I love that drizzly cold weather with the leaves and everything's wet and it's all, and people walking up though, the weather's so terrible today. The weather's so terrible today. Well, the people who say the weather is terrible today, by the way, have about 360 days a year that they say the weather's terrible because it's too hot, it's too cold, it's raining too much, it's this, that, and the thing. I walk, I say, wow, this is a beautiful day. I love these cloudy days with the thunder, the lightning. I love the snowy day. I love the day with the slush. I love the day. Every day is a beautiful day, but the day didn't change for me or them. It's the exact same day, but we're each having a separate reality. My reality is this is wonderful. I love the variation. I love that cold, biting cold in the air. It's so refreshing. In only 3 months, I'm going to be feeling it so warm. Let me enjoy this while it is right now. So what is the difference? The difference is that I just choose what to think about. I could also have a thought that came somewhere. I decided not to think the thought that I don't believe there's such a thing as a miserable day. I never experienced a miserable day. So other people do. Every day is a miserable day. Where's that power switch? Where's that switch between this is a beautiful day and it's a miserable day? It's the exact same day. It's because of a choice and thought. So that is our choice. I want to open up the floor for anyone else who wants to chip in. I wonder if these whiteboards get saved or not. I'm going to take a screenshot. I don't know if my first time using them, but
Rabbi?
yes, go ahead.
I tuned in a little late. I had to say goodbye to a service person, but my friend Dawn, I've been listening for a while, and number one, I give her enormous kudos for her honesty and straightforwardness. It's a fascinating conversation. The one thing I'd like to ask about, and I hate to play devil's advocate, particular choice of words, but it is still a very fascinating conversation. The one thing that I wonder, and it could be my mental health background or whatever, I think, the way that you experience it and that whole point is great, except when it comes to serious trauma, serious pain, serious torture, things that we've experienced that are really, or that we've watched other people go through. And we can't judge what's serious torture for others. You know, we can judge it for ourselves. There's a certain, is there not a certain value and benefit to telling the truth about our feelings? And it's complicated because you don't want to wallow in the feelings, but to deny it and to say everything's fine when everything is not fine is also not good. So isn't there some value, particularly in very serious harm? I mean, PTSD, I've actually worked with and trained people, people who have suffered true post-traumatic stress disorder, in which the mind actually disassociated from the experience, and the way to help heal them is to own a little bit of that feeling and to know that you survived. So there's a value there, is there not, to accepting that these are your feelings. It doesn't mean you have to make decisions based on them. It doesn't mean that God doesn't exist because you're hurting, but it does mean you have to be honest about the fact that you're hurting. No?
Yeah, of course, a person should be. That's why we have grief, and we do believe that a person experiences pain, and it talks about how a person can be brokenhearted and happy-hearted, and sometimes even both at the same time. So that's definitely, feelings is really the whole focus of life is feelings. But where do the feelings come from? They come from a thought, and the thought can take something to be. It can take something that is, make it into a trauma or make it not into a trauma. I'll give you an example. I heard once a person who's actually a psychologist himself. He was talking about how he went to a orchard or something like that, and he was swarmed by a bunch of bees that came out of some sort of beehive, and he went screaming, running, and he came to the warden, and he's like, the bees, and the guys. Until that time, he just had a lot of adrenaline. He didn't really realize the significance of what happened. And the warden said to him, "You could have died." And then he was traumatized. He was traumatized from, he didn't know that he could have died. He thought it was just he was afraid of getting stung or a bunch of bees, and he was running, but it never occurred to him it was life and death experience. But as soon as the warden said, "You could have died," the warden put that thought in his head, and he's like, "Oh my gosh," this became something he started to ruminate on and think on. But what we see that's very interesting, from Dr. Bill Pettit, who's a psychiatrist himself and very much focused on this PTSD and showing people a way to leave it, is he says that in any type of PTSD situation, 8 out of 10 people actually move on in life without any what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. So what's the difference between the people who move on and the people who don't move on? And he suggests it's because how seriously do they take their thoughts? Because once a person realizes that a memory is merely a thought carried through time, it's not happening now. It's not happening now. And if someone shot a bullet, you could either focus on the near-death experience, or you could think about the awesome physics of the trajectory of the bullet and the incredible technology of the gun and many different things. A person really could still choose what they're going to think about. And they could choose whether to think about it. So the question is really, do we have to be stuck in trauma? That's really the first question. And I would suggest no.
No, I don't agree. I don't think we do either.
Right. And we don't have to think about it, and we don't have to ruminate on it. And so right now, this person is in my life or is not in my life. This person is behaving nicely or not nicely. It's really irrelevant to my experience of whether or not I want to say I'm going to be happy or unhappy based on how this person's conducted themselves. It's not a question of exonerating the person in the past or the person in the present, but it's irrelevant to my experience because this person is only one small thought, passing thought of all the thoughts I could be thinking about right now. And I think that's God's gift to us in giving us the gift of thought. And I think I shared with you the first class, the class I did on Parshas Bereishis, the first parsha in the Torah, the book of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, was that what I suggested is that in the beginning, we didn't have a conception of what could go wrong. We didn't have a conception of all the negative things that could happen. God says, by the way, there's this tree in the garden here. You have everything you need. I'm taking care of everything. You got all the love. You got everything taken care of. I'm following through. I'm providing everything. I'm the only one that can help or hurt you. There's no other forces in the Garden of Eden. You don't have to think about anything. Just telling you, there's a tree over there that don't eat of that tree, because if you eat from that tree, you're going to become like God. Well, in what way are we going to become like God if we eat from that tree? I'm not going to get superpowers. Adam didn't become super powerful. He didn't start creating worlds, and he didn't start creating people and all those kind of godly powers. But what came into Eve's mind as soon as she ate from that fruit was, do you realize what could happen? She might die, she thinks to herself. And if she dies, Adam's going to get a new wife. And that's unbearable. So she runs and makes him eat the apple. Wasn't really an apple, but the fruit. And he should die also. That the most horrible thing that she could conceive was that she would die. He'd marry another woman. That's a horrible thought. But why didn't that thought occur to her 15 minutes earlier? Because that was not part of the human experience. So God said, there's this possibility. You could be like God. You know what God has to think about? He has to think about all the things that could go wrong. He has to think how to make all the laws of physics work together, and the planets work together. None of them should crash into each other, and the fish shouldn't, die out from the ice, and all these kind of things he's thinking about, and he's got it all figured out. He says to us, don't go there. It's not all that it's made out to be. We're like, no, this is too boring. Just being alive and breathing. So it's okay. Yeah, thank you very much. But I want to ruminate on serious things. What's going to happen with, nuclear energy and solar warming and this thing, and what happens if the asteroids come, and what happens if the sun runs out of power? And okay, it's only 350 million years from now, but it's still a serious problem. Let's worry about it. Before you know it, all of us are cowering in anxiety about what's going to happen, and what happens if he leaves us and she leaves us, and they don't think, and the mail doesn't come, and what does it mean that the mail's late today, and is the bill in the mail, and on and on and on, just craziness. We become crazy from thinking about all these things. Why? It's a choice. It's a choice, because I can go back at any time I want, back into the Garden of Eden. I can say, you know what? I don't know what's in the mail. It doesn't matter to me whether the mail comes to me or not. If I need to get a piece of mail, it will come. I don't know what the sun going out of existence. I don't know what's going to happen then. All I know, God took care of me yesterday, took care of me today. And I want to wrap up shortly, because we talked about trying to keep the class on schedule, and particularly today, I have to go to prepare for my son's bar mitzvah, which is starting in 3 hours. But a story comes to mind, and why I always say we should talk about stories is because we have to see that other people really live this. This is not just theoretical. So I heard this from the man himself. His man's name, I think, was Fredingson. He was a Holocaust survivor. He grew up in the Warsaw Ghetto as a child. Thank you. And there was basically almost no food in the Warsaw Ghetto. And there was a curfew. Somehow his father, after dark, adults could not be out. And so the father would come home each day with a loaf of bread. He somehow managed to get a loaf of bread. And every night in the streets of the Warsaw Ghetto, where kids were walking through in the streets screaming, bread. They needed bread. They went out, the little kids went out to collect food for their families. So he recollects how the father would cut a piece of bread for each child in the family, and for his wife and for himself, and they would eat a piece of bread each. And his father would take the bread, the remaining bread, and he would put it in this bag. And he would go to the window, he'd open the window, and he would take the bread and he would throw it out the window. And the son was horrified. This is the man who he's passed on now, I believe, but must have been in his 80s when I heard him say this. He said he was just horrified because, what's going to be? And the father said, so the father obviously was throwing the bread out the window to these little kids in the street to be able to get the bread, take it home to their families. So the father said to the son, he said, the God who brought us this loaf of bread today will bring us another loaf of bread tomorrow. And I don't have to make plans for tomorrow. I don't have to stockpile the bread for tomorrow. I don't have to worry about tomorrow. I have my bread for today. I have, as they say in the Lord's Prayer, I have my daily bread, right? I have my daily bread, and I have what I need for today, and the rest I can give to other people. And so what our goal is in life is to get to that place where I feel so confident about tomorrow. Not because of my skills, not because I have X amount of money in the bank account, not because I have so many skills and, oh, well, tomorrow someone's going to hire me to paint or to shovel or whatever it is, and I always have work. No, because God Almighty took care of me today. If I really say, what's the source of the fact that I had a plate of food this morning? I had a glass of water before I started this class. Not because the water company, I mean, I appreciate the water company that they provide pipes and stuff like that, but that's not really the source of everything I have. And once I see it, we said over here, once I start to pay attention to the reality that number 5, this track record that God has been taking care of me every step of the way. I've been busy. I've been very busy thinking about, oh, I don't have what I wanted. And what happened to the thing I had yesterday? Well, I don't have more of it today. And what's going to be tomorrow? Every day of my life, I've been very, very busy not paying attention to God's track record because I'm very busy worried about tomorrow. I calculated, oh, if only I had a certain number of millions of dollars, never have to work again, and I would have interest income coming in every day. And then I wouldn't have to ask God for anything anymore. Because that's what our mentality is. Our mentality is, what about tomorrow? And once I have everything I calculated for tomorrow, I'm done with God. Like, what do I need God for? I have today, I have tomorrow. Thank you very much. Let's take a vacation. And that's because I'm not paying attention to God's track record. So I suggest that for this week's assignment, that each one of us make a list, start to take a look and make a list of God's track record in our lives, from the simplest to the greatest, from every one of those breaths, every one of the beautiful scenes that we saw, every one of the beautiful things that we experienced. We have 5 senses, and what did God bring us in each one of those? And we can go, I believe what we'll see, each one of us will see, we'll start to see the track record. And we need to see these 7 things in God in order for us to be able to be certain that He is taking care of us. And He has taken care of us, and He will take care of us. And God willing, we're all going to get there, one moment at a time. So, unless anyone else has something pressing they want to share, I think we'll pause for this week and we'll pick it up next week. We'd like to hear what everyone thought about during the assignment. Okay.
Rabbi, can you leave that up long enough for me to write those notes there?
Sure, 100%.
Thanks. I'm writing it now.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Mazel tov.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna, I'll just put this on pause, and then when you're done, you can just leave, okay?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay,
Good
Mazel tov. Take care,
Shabbos.
everybody. Good Shabbos. Bye now.